took so long.
No, it's fine.
All right, so let's start with your name and your age, and just like a little bit of your backstory, like where you're from, how you ended up here.
All right. So, my name is Derrick Richardson. I'm 33. I moved to Boise about 3 years ago, 3.5. Originally, I came up here to help one of my friends start his restaurant, so I helped him out a little bit. Um, Previously, though, I'm originally from Florida, Pensacola. Uh, uh, I stayed there until I was about 18. Moved out when I turned 18. Thought I was a man. Went to Orlando. Stayed there for about 10 years, I would say. And in that time, from when I was 15, I started having kidney issues. Had a transplant at 17. Lost that kidney at 26. I mean 23. And I've been on dialysis ever since I've been 23.
So, what's a typical day in the life like for you as somebody living with dialysis? Like living like without basically without your kidneys and having to go through dialysis.
So most people think that it's like it'll take away everything, but I've been able to find like balance with it myself. But like the day in the life of most patients is that you wake up, you take whatever medications that you need to take. If need be, go ahead and take your nausea medicine and everything in the morning. Let's see, like when you have a transplant, you take about 13 medications a day, and most of them are supposed to be immunosuppressant drugs. Then you have like antivirals, antibacterial medicines because your immune system is weak. Um, and then once you get to dialysis, it's kind of like you don't take as many medications because there's no point to take anti-rejection medicines when your kidneys don't work, but you do have another set of strict guidelines that you have to go by. So they give us vitamin D. Your kidneys make your red blood cells, so we get Epogen for that. They give us iron every month because apparently your kidneys help store some of the iron in your body, so it helps with your anemia and stuff. And we have a very strict diet. Don't eat anything dairy. Don't eat nuts, seeds, um, dark sodas that have phosphoric acid because phosphorus takes calcium from your bones. So they're very strict about that. We take what they call phosphorus binders. So it's just medications that you take to take the extra phosphorus out of your diet. Um, with myself, I know we take a medicine for our parathyroid hormone because a lot of the things that we end up dealing with are not necessarily like the primary cause. They're all secondary things. So making sure you don't eat this to take calcium out of your bones. Don't have this because it has too much or something. Just anything that you feel like it might be too much, avoid it. And if it tastes good, avoid it. Um, you also have to watch like how much you drink. So in the winter time, I'm not supposed to drink more than like 2 liters in 2 days. Uh,
Of alcohol?
just fluid in general.
Oh wow.
Yeah, alcohol is one of those things that you have to be very careful with that because it causes so many different issues. It can make you feel like you have fluid on, but you're really dehydrated because you're gonna go sweat out all the liquor that you drank. So for most things, they tell you to be careful with it. And ironically, you're not supposed to drink beer because beer has too much phosphorus in it because it has wheat. So anything with wheat in it also has too much phosphorus. So basically, almost everything um, that has it. Like I was saying earlier, like with myself, with the parathyroid hormone issue, is that we have to take medicine for that because if you let it get too big, it starts to leach calcium from your bones. And I'm pretty sure probably at the end of this month, I might have to have surgery to take mine out
Your
for that.
parathyroid?
Yeah.
So what is the parathyroid?
It's the gland in your neck. Usually, it regulates how much calcium is in your body and how much it needs to take from your bones for stuff like stomach acid, because calcium is a very good antacid. So your body kind of alleviates itself by pulling calcium from your body in order to help it out, because you can get very acidic blood with dialysis. So they actually give us like it's supposed to be like it's a bicarbonate solution that they mix it into the machine, because uric acid, that's what it is. Uric acid can build up in your system and make your body very acidic. So the parathyroid hormone takes care of that. But what happens is that when it's not regulated, or your body's not filtering off the extra hormone, it stays in your body and it just keeps pulling calcium more and more. Until sometimes you can take medication to fix it, but the problem with that is that around a lot of patients are nauseous most of the time. The medication that we have to take in order to fight the parathyroid hormone, until recently it was a medicine called Sensipar. You have to have a very fatty diet in order for Sensipar to not affect your stomach. And that's something very hard to tell a patient, that hey, you have to take this medication and it's going to make you very sick, but you have to take it while you're sick. And it's like they can barely keep food down, and now you're taking a medication that makes it even worse, and you can't do anything about it other than just deal with the symptoms. I myself, there were times that I was taking this medication and I just couldn't keep anything down, and I would have to make a decision on whether I'm going to keep taking my medicine so that I can eat a little bit, or take the medication and not eat at all. And you have to make those decisions all the time, and it's never it's like you want to, but it's never really a moment where you can just be like, oh, just be aloof about everything. You have to be cognizant of everything that's happening with your body. You have to be aware of it. You have to be aware about how something makes you feel, because even with the Sensipar, and you take all the nausea meds and stuff, and you say, well, hey, you can take a med to make you eat. But there's no med that makes you eat anymore. The med that we did have was called Megace, but Megace is making people's stomach collapse.
Wow. Okay.
So I was lucky, because I took that medicine for years. Religiously, I took that medication. And it didn't make my stomach collapse, but I have a bunch of stomach issues now, where even if I didn't have kidney issues at this point, I would still have a buttload of stomach issues by just dealing with some of the medications and dealing with the side effects, and then trying to fix the side effect with another medication that gives you another side effect. It's like it's just a revolving door of side effects, and every time they have a medication to fix you or try to fix you.
So I want to dive into that a bit more.
Yes.
Before we get there, let's go back and talk about, how did this all even happen in the first place?
All right. So when I was 15 years old, I was nauseous every day, and so I would say maybe it was a month ahead, and I probably lost 30 pounds at this point. And I wasn't a small kid. I think I weighed more then. I probably was 180 around that time. So for me to lose that amount of weight, it was drastic.
Yeah.
So I went to the hospital. This is in Pensacola. The first time they're like, all right, you're throwing up. It's probably a stomach virus going around. So I got medications for stomach virus. My mom went and got me Pepto-Bismol, and for a little bit I'll be okay. I was still nauseous, but I'm like, no, this is just the side effects of the stomach virus. And then that stomach virus exacerbated into now my face is swelling, and you go back to the hospital and they do no testing, by the way. They just look at me. They look at me and physically say, your face is swollen because you have allergies. So I started taking Zyrtec for hay fever. But then I realized I was still throwing up, and this time it's gotten to the point where I'm starting to feel the muscle loss, because I can't. I locked myself out of my house one time, and I tried to climb up, and I remember trying to pull myself into this window that I could just leap in before, and I was struggling. And so again, we went back to the hospital, and I know like in a period of 6 months, I went to the hospital at least once every 2 weeks, and each time they would say, "Oh, it's a stomach virus." They'll give me more medications for stuff. And I remember the last time I stopped going, it was because they told my mom I was faking it. They told her I was doing it for attention because they could find nothing wrong with me. And not one time did they ever take blood. I never did a urine test. I did no test other than them just looking at me and telling my mom this, that, and the third. Um, and it just went on until I just gave up.
Did you ever ask them to take blood or urine, or?
When we went a couple of times, my mom would ask them to take urine and stuff. Like we weren't really like keen on like how much you can do with blood work.
Right.
Because up until that time, it's like I never had any issues with anything. I rarely got sick, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
So I rarely got sick. So we were very ignorant to what we needed to look for when we went to the doctor.
Right.
And when you're taught like the doctor, whatever the doctor tells you is the end all be all,
Right,
and we have this unwavering trust sometimes, and so that's what we did. We were like, a doctor wouldn't tell you to do this, a doctor wouldn't tell you to do this, a doctor wouldn't take a chance with your life. So we thought that all the necessary steps that we took were taking, and that's why I think my mom, she felt like she was doing everything that she could, because we have a doctor telling us one thing and she sees what I'm going through at home. So she was very torn for a long time as to how to treat it. And I think that the moment for me is that when they told me I was faking it, and outside of my mom, I knew what was happening with me. I knew I wasn't feeling good. I knew that this isn't normal, because I was never that type of kid to be in the house or like to not want to do anything.
Right.
And it took all of that away from me, because at the time it was also my freshman year of high school. So all of these things were playing into that, trying to figure out just how to wrap your life around being in the hospital and nothing is wrong with you.
Yeah.
So it was very rough during that time because of that.
Yeah. That's crazy to me too, because that makes me think of my freshman year of high school. Right at the beginning, I had a bloody nose for like an hour and a half one day, and my mom's like, "All right, we're taking you to the hospital." And I was like, "Okay." And like that came up, they're like, "Hey, do you want us to do some blood work on you?" And we were like, "Yeah, sure, do some blood work. Like that sounds great." So that's crazy that they never asked you in that time. Like, hey, so what ended up being wrong, and how did you find out?
So how I found out what was wrong is that so after they told my mom that, where basically they're like, he's doing it for attention, there's no reason, I just kind of gave up after that. And then I would say I was walking through the hallway freshman year, because also during this time, my freshman year, is like I was always sick, and I was always at the nurse's office. But this particular day, I was walking towards the nurse's office, like, because I was nauseous, and it just felt like somebody stabbed me in the side. And I will never forget that pain. And I remember that's where I got the motto, "You panic, you die." Because I remember walking through the hallway, and it was just I'm just like laying over, and there's this girl walking through the hallway, and I was like, "You have two choices." I was like, "You can sit here against this wall and make it up there, or you can say, like, hey, I think I'm dying, carry me to the nurse's office." So I pretty much like, yeah, I might need you. I know you don't know me, but yeah, get me to the office. So they got me there, and I'm laying in the nurse's bed waiting for my mom to get there. And she gets me, takes me to the hospital. They rush me back because they can't figure out, like, of course, like, they're still like, I don't understand what's happening. And they try to take blood for the first time and couldn't get it. And they tried this subsequently for 42 times. I got stuck 42 times with the needle. And it was just funny because they started to drip blood from my finger, to get the blood, and I'm sitting there watching the nurse drip the blood, like do the blood, and she's walking out and just drops everything on the floor. So now I'm back dripping my blood like from my fingertips into this thing just for them to get enough. And that's when I realized they're like, you have nephrotic syndrome, FSGS, and it's like focal segmentular something like that. But basically, is when your nephrons, the tubes that are connected to your kidneys, they get so damaged they start leaking protein and stuff. And nephrotic syndrome, if you catch it, what I found out later on as an adult is that most of the time it's an inflammation disorder that happens in kids, and it's not lupus because it's not something that like affects the body all together at one time in your skin. It affects your kidneys first, and then vicariously through your kidneys it starts to, that's how everything else gets affected. Right. It's more so that your kidneys are failed in the first place versus the actual nephrotic syndrome. I found out later on, like if they would have caught it at my age at 15, I would have grew out of it within a couple of years. But even that was like very convoluted because my whole, like everything that has happened to me now is all because I had an infection. And when I first started throwing up and I had the swelling, if they would have caught it right then and, hey, we're going to treat this infection, it would have been something way simpler than what it turned out to be. Because by the time they did catch it, it was almost like trying to make up for what they've already did. Yeah. And then the issue with that is that I was on medications with, I started off like, I know someone that's ever taken prednisone. If I tell you that I took 80 milligrams in a day, you'll be like, that's a fucking, like, why would somebody give you that much? And then after you think about that, you think about the fact that prednisone causes you to have GERDs a lot. And GERDs, like acid reflux.
Oh, okay.
But it's continuous. It got to the point where this is how I know that my doctor, like I wasn't sure if he liked me or not, because apparently when you take prednisone, it causes acid reflux to the point that if you don't take anything, it'll burn a hole in your throat.
Yeah.
So it started to burn a hole in my throat. I didn't really know what was going on. I just knew that I couldn't eat. And then when I couldn't eat anymore, it started to be water that was burning. And I called my doctor at 9 o'clock at night, and I was like, hey, is this whatever? And he's like, yeah, you got to take an acid. And that was the first time that I was like, I was pissed. And it's already hard because I felt vulnerable as a kid. Like it was only so much that I could do. Like I was in my mom's house, and this is the scenario that we're with, and we're trying to figure out all of this stuff. And you have your doctor that can't even do like simple things, you know, just to make sure you're okay. And that's how it basically started off like that with all of my medical stuff, is that my first doctor didn't really pay too much attention to anything that was happening with me. So it's like you started off with nephrotic syndrome, FS, like acute kidney failure, and because of all the treatments and stuff that he's giving you without necessarily, you know, asking you or trying to see, like, is it working or are you feeling better, he would just prescribe more stuff. And that was like my first couple of years just dealing with kidney disease. I didn't even know we had medications that kept you from throwing up until I was like 25, that I was like, oh, you can take a pill and it keeps you from being nauseous. And I was like, but I've been dealing with kidney disease since I was 15. It's like, why am I just finding out about this? Or, you know, why am I just finding out about, you know, you're not supposed to take this much of a medication? Or when you take this medication, you're supposed to do this, because nobody's doing any of these precautions with me. It was to the point where I didn't even find out, like most of the things that I found out about medicine in general, it wasn't from my doctors. It was because I just happened to go to college, and I was pre-med for my first 2 years, and when I was 18, and you know, I'm sitting up here like nothing made sense. And I was like, well, they pretty much, I was like, they either didn't love me or I did something to them and I didn't know. But I was like, what my medical book is telling me versus what my doctors are doing to me is not adding up. Like, there's a extreme disconnect. Like, it's not adding up at all. And when I started to realize that, I just remember like, I've always been the type of person that sometimes when I find out something very hurtful or it's a situation that's hurtful, I cut it off immediately. So in order to just deal with that type of knowledge that you have people as a 15-year-old kid, that you have people that won't even take like an extra 10 minutes out of their day for you, it makes you feel shitty. It's not just about saying, oh, they're doing it for attention. It's like, we know that you're not faking, but we don't care. And it's not something easy to deal with, trying to be young and trying to feel like the world is your oyster. Like, you're gonna get out there, you're gonna do the right thing, and everything's gonna work out. That's what you think. You think like the people, that doctors, lawyers, like all these people that have this power, you would think that they would be, trying to do their best to make a change or to do something. But that was nothing that I dealt with in the beginning. It was one of the most horrible experiences ever, and it made me depressed to no end. I was a gifted student. I had all these gifted classes, and then one year you just see all of my classes tank, just all of them. And at that point, I just thought my life was going to be dialysis, getting sick from dialysis, going home to deal with being sick, and then the next day you hope you're not too sick and you can enjoy that so that you can go to dialysis the next day and then do it all over again. And it's not it's not easy as a kid to get up every day and like, oh, I have to go do this treatment that's going to save my life. It was very soul sucking, and I only recently just started to get over it, even some of the stuff when I was a teenager, which is crazy. I'm 33 years old. At this point I've had kidney disease longer than I didn't have it, and it's like to even still have to think about stuff when you're from when you're 15, and it puts you into this survival mode because you feel like, well, if no one loves me, I was like, if I don't love me, no one else is gonna love me. And I just got to the point, I was like, well, damn, you can't even, I was like, it's not like I'm paying a prostitute. I was like, I'm paying my doctor, and I can't even pay them to love me enough.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do? You can't get love outside because people think you're faking, and then your doctors don't even show you enough care in the world to even feel like you deserve somebody like taking an extra couple of minutes for you. I just started to feel like I didn't deserve help. That maybe I deserve this. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe it's something with me that people, they just say, I don't care about Derrick, or, maybe I was too nice. Maybe I wasn't nice enough. Maybe I didn't ask a certain way. Maybe I asked at the wrong time. And to keep having to think about that, just to be my age, or to be in pain and not be able to ask for medicine because you don't want him to think, oh, he's just doing it for drugs or something, or whichever. You just get tired. You're just drained. It's like, if I have to be in pain, I would rather be by myself and be in pain. And you can't even do that because society will tell, well, you're not trying hard enough. Well, what did you do for your pain? Did you talk to your doctor? They're going to start naming all the things that you've done for years. Well, why didn't you do this? And it's like, I did. But then they're like, well, if you did that, why is it? It's like, but that's the question that you should be asking the doctors, because I've done my part. So you should be asking me, why are you talking about what the doctor didn't do right and why I got it? Like, it doesn't make sense. It's like the fact that you can't even make it make sense when you're talking to me. It's like, how do you expect me to go and make this conversation that we're having make sense to someone that doesn't want to hear it? I was like, at least you're trying to understand what I'm saying, and you still don't understand. And now imagine somebody that just doesn't give a damn.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a whole nother ballpark, a whole nother argument. It's like gotten to the point where I have a way I talk to my doctors, and I have a way I talk to everyone else. and for a long time they were they were exclusive for a long time, and then I just got to the point where I didn't care. I was like, if you don't give a damn, I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna tell you what you need to hear. If you don't want to work for me as your patient, oh well. It's like, we don't have to talk. I was like, I'll speak to you when you come and talk to your other patients, but we have nothing else to discuss. And that was just something that I recently have been able to like bring myself to do, because it was always like this notion that I'm doing something wrong. I'm not doing enough. It's all me. I'm not trying hard enough. And it's not that, yeah. I'm sorry, tangent.
Yeah, no, that's what this is about.
Yeah.
So have you had any doctors, like really good doctors, people who are like, oh my god, dude, you care, like you get it?
When I moved to Orlando when I was 18, my kidney doctor there, amazing. Like, I could literally read something, and like I'm not gonna go in and act like I know better, because that's how you mess yourself up. Too many cooks in the kitchen. But I can go and read something and say, hey, could you look into this for me? And out of all my doctors, I would say that has been the biggest difference between them. Like, my really good doctor, they would my really good doctors, they would listen to what I'm saying, and they would go and research it themselves, and they would come to me and it's like, hey, I looked into this, and we can try this method, or if you don't want to take this medication, we can figure out a better way where it's not like taking too much out of you. And so I was doing very well for a few years with that doctor, and I never had an issue. It just was amazing. Like, I would go to the hospital, and if I had an issue with another doctor, like another type of specialist, he would go and speak on my behalf to them to try to get them to understand what I'm saying. And that actually helped me it just helped me stay good, and it gave me something to work towards it. So with that, that's why I was able to go to school, work, hang out and stuff. And like it was like I look forward to him. Like, I even call and try to talk to him if I can. There's only so much they can do with ethics and stuff. But I waited I waited a good couple of years so we could be friends now. But his name was Ranjit, Dr. Ranjit, Uday Ranjit. That was his name, and he was an amazing doctor. And I measured all my doctors to him, because I'm like, he had just as many patients as those doctors. I mean, he was in Orlando, Florida, at one of the biggest hospital there, and it's like to come here, and it's like it's not as hectic, and it's like I feel like I got more attention from him than I do from my doctors here. It's like, even when I talk to my doctor here, they're only required to talk to you for 15 minutes while you're on a dialysis machine. Now, mind you, this is like the worst time to kind of talk to somebody, because you're already not feeling good. Sometimes you don't want to talk because you're not feeling good. There's a few times he would wake me up out of my sleep, and my doctor's like, well, do you need anything? And I'll sit there like, I just woke up. Like I'm not thinking about what medication I need at this moment. I just woke up out of sleep. Maybe you should get me some sleep meds. I don't know. But he would, it's like now, it's like they don't have to spend that much time with you. And it's like they're there and they're gone. And if you need anything else, you're more so talking to the nurses in the clinic, in the dialysis clinic, which every now and then you'll have a nurse that feels like they know too much because they know patients. And they'll try to put their 2 cents in, but even with that, it's like I can tell the difference. It's like a night and day, and it's crazy, because I thought he was just being a good doctor, and I didn't realize that he was going above and beyond what most doctors do.
Is that Uday?
Uday,
who was going above and beyond?
Yeah, he goes above and beyond. My doctor here, it's like when I need him to talk to people, he'll do it. But other than that, I know that if I don't catch him within that 15 minutes he has to see me for that month, then I might miss out on something. And that's very frustrating because it's like you're tired. I go to dialysis at 6 o'clock in the morning, and that was when I was working. I would come home and go to sleep at 12, maybe 1 o'clock, and get up for that, and then go to work. And trying to figure out all the things that you need in that amount of time, it's implausible to figure out that type of stuff. It's like people barely know what they want to eat when they first wake up. And I'm trying to tell you what medication that I need that I thought I gave you a list of and all these other things. It's like it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So what going forward what is your outlook like?
Well, I would say right now my outlook is good. It's way better than what it was. Just within this past year, I've had like 3 blood transfusions, and I had surgery. Then I got blood sepsis.
What's that?
Blood poisoning. Like,
oh wow.
Yeah. So I end up blood infection.
Oh damn.
So I got an infection in my blood, and that wasn't good because I didn't even understand all that was happening.
Yeah.
And at first I thought I was gonna die this year. Like, no lie, I thought this would be I thought it was gonna be the year I die. And I know that's like my anxiety and stuff, but it's like everything that happened to me in such a short period of time, it's like I thought I was gonna die. And now, like, my outlook most of the time when I'm in the right frame of mind is that, what was it? Aladdin had this phrase, genies can't kill, but you'll be surprised at what you can live through. So I say that about life. It's like life doesn't always kill, but you'll be surprised at what you can make it through. So
dude, that's great.
That's really great. That's pretty much my outlook right now. I'm like, sometimes when I feel bad and funky, it's like I know, like, for this moment I'm gonna feel like shit. Like I try to take it for by moment thing, and it's way better than trying to plan out. Like, for my thing, it's way better than trying to plan out what you're gonna do next year and stuff. Because next year you never know what you're gonna do. You might be sick, and now you planned out all this crap and you're unhappy. But I was like, with how I do things, and I plan it out moment by moment. So if this moment wasn't good, I'll go to the next one. If that moment's not good, maybe you need to skip 2 or 3 moments before you get to the one that you need to get to. And I've been looking at it like that. And that's not to say that I don't have days where I'm depressed and stuff like that. Because one thing I had to realize, I was like, there's a reason why women live longer than men, because they'll fucking cry and don't care. And that's what I started doing. I was like, look, man, sometimes you're not feeling good. Fucking cry. You'll feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
Sometimes your day look like, I was like, I know when I was depressed, I remember days that can be 100 degrees outside, and I remember them as gloomy. And I've learned how to, I've taken the time out to actually, I've had time with myself in order to do that, and I've always been honest with how I felt in my emotion, so it wasn't something that was too hard for me to do. It was just about how I channel my energy. So when I get upset, I channel my energy to other things. I clean up when I get upset, things like that. But I would say, like, my outlook because of that has been way better, because I know that, it's either momentary or you're gonna die. And if it's momentary, you'll get over it. And if you die, it ain't no matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I'm not trying to rush to death.
So what, is there any possibility that this could all be fixed?
Well, with kidney disease, it's not necessarily, there's no cures, but you have treatments. A transplant would be the best course of action for me or anyone in this situation if they're not older or it's not going to affect their health adversely. The biggest issue with kidney transplant, though, is that like I said earlier, I had a transplant when I was 17. Now, the most important medication is Prograf. Now, Prograf can be about $10,000, and that's not with your insurance. Now, I had Medicare and Medicaid, and they said, after a year or so, I should be able to work. Now, you're not even healed up from the transplant after a year because it's major surgery. So, Prograf is like the medication that's the most expensive, and with your insurance, it can be a couple of thousand a month still, and that's like my only recourse right now for the situation that I'm in. I've done dialysis for a decade. I'm actually a pretty good patient because most people don't. I'm very functional and I go and enjoy my life. Like most people don't even know I have kidney issues until I tell them, because it's just how I carry myself in it. But transplant would be like the best course of action, and that's iffy because they tell you, like, I've received newsletters that basically say if you aren't affluent, it's going to be very hard to be successful, and that's the main thing is like paying for the medication. So it would be the treatment for me, but I've just I didn't do any of it for years because I knew that when I went into rejection, I was in the hospital at 2 weeks at a minimum, just to fight the rejection and to make sure that the medication that they're giving you is not going to make your immune system so weak that you're going to die from just anything,
right.
A common cold or stuff like that. So, like the best course of action is always a transplant if you're able to. It's just that it can be, when you start thinking about the complexities and the ins and outs of it, and the actual, I'll say dealing with the actual paperwork and things involved in it, you'll realize that it's a very complicated decision, because you want to jump in it because you're going to want to feel good. Like I remember how having kidneys felt. Like I felt amazing. I did whatever. I traveled. But it's like to know it's either you're going to have a little bit of freedom and spend like 90% of your time in the hospital because you can't afford it, or because you can't afford medications, or you just have to bide your time and deal with it as it comes. And I've been, I'm hopeful for a transplant, and that's what I'm working towards. But I know that it's something that, as far as making a logistical move, it might sound good for right now, but what are you gonna do when you're going through this again?
Yeah.
Because when you have a transplant, your body builds antibodies against it, and the problem that can make that complicated is that you start building antibodies against other people. So right now, I would say my antibody level is like 80%. So what that means is that 80% of the people that will try to give you a kidney wouldn't even be able to, because your body is going to automatically just try to fight it off.
Right.
So they have different treatments for that now, but even the treatments to get all of that taken care of, it's like a whole process before you can even have a transplant. And of course, the people that can afford those treatments more often than not are rich.
Yeah. How much start to finish, do you have an idea of how much this would cost you if you were to not only get the transplant, but then get all the medication you need and actually get across that finish line?
If I'm lucky, my insurance will pay for the transplant, but usually surgery for a transplant is $100,000.
And that's without insurance?
Yeah, that's without
Okay.
insurance.
Okay.
And then I would say with medication and stuff, you'll spend at least $1,000 or $2,000 a month. Like you can if your insurance is not paying.
Let's assume like no insurance.
So
like,
no
straight out of
insurance.
cost.
With no insurance, I would say it probably costs $100,000 a year just to have a transplant.
Wow.
And it still would be half the cost of me keeping me on dialysis. So what people forget about is that they're too busy like looking at like just this, like, oh, it's $100, but you have to think about how that money is circulated. So it might look like $100 for just this, but then you have all these specialists. You have to pay all of them. then they might say, like $100 for basic stuff. So, but nothing you do is going to be basic. So everything you do is going to cost money. There's no basic, like, a basic thing for living. You have to make sure that you're on top of medication. You have to make sure you're on top of, like, even going to your doctor's appointments. I believe like the first maybe 2 or 3 months, they don't even want you to have like an Uber after transplant, because anywhere that it can be multiple germs, they don't want you to be there. No taxis, no anything. A lot of the time, they want you to live at the hospital or near it when you first have your transplant. So that's another whole nother cost, because everybody is not can apply for Ronald McDonald House. The people that are hurt the most, unfortunately, are middle class people, because you can't get anything for making too much money, and you don't get any help for being poor. So it makes it even rough to have to find an apartment, and to sometimes you don't find apartments next to the places. Sometimes you have to go out an hour and a half. I've had people that have driven 2 or 3 hours. Sometimes you have people that drive 3 or 4 hours just to make sure they get to this appointment. And these appointments are not like short appointments. An appointment for a transplant in a day can be about 7 or 8 hours, because all your tests, they're going to wait to do all the results and everything right then and there. They're not going to send you home just in case, because you never know, you might need a transfusion. You might need an iron transfusion. You might need like just random things. You might need a biopsy, a kidney biopsy, and they don't feel good.
Doesn't sound like it would.
Yeah, it's like a nail gun with a nail at the end, and they numb you, and then they hit the button, and it scrapes against your kidney, and they have to. It's
Oh.
So.
Oh, that
yeah.
sounds so painful.
Yeah, man. So you never know. Like, you literally can have a procedure the same day because of something that happened. And when you first have your transplant, you do that for about 3 or 4 times a week. Just sit up there, they do blood work, you wait, and you go from there. So it's very, you need to have money in order to just to be comfortable, because it's like there's no other way that you can find a way around it, because it's like it's one of those things where you have no choice. Like, if you want to live, you have to be here, and then you have the world saying, if you want to live, you better be able to afford this, and it's almost impossible to do it alone. That was also like one of the reasons why I didn't want to go through the process, because I was like, now I am responsible for myself. Now everything that happens to me, to an extent, I have control over. So I have to be very aware about what I'm going to do the next time I go through the process, because before there was some ignorance when I was younger, because no social worker, nobody. Everything I've had to find out has been through a horrible way. And then later on, they'll be like, oh, it's just that. Oh, it's just this. And that's how I kind of feel like they do with all your treatments. Oh, it's just this. But it's not that simple. It's not just, oh, I'm going to go and do it and whatever. It's like, it's so much that goes into it that it's like, sometimes dialysis is the best bet. It sucks, but sometimes it is the best bet, because you have no other options. So sometimes the best thing you can do is just stay alive until you figure out a plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's basically what I was doing. It's like, I don't feel like I'm living my life. I just feel like I'm alive, trying to get to the next point. But you have to do that all the time.
Yeah.
With everything. You don't want to eat. Next point. Like, it's just random things. Never works in your favor like you want to.
So I mean, it seems kind of obvious at this point, like it's been implied, but can you explicitly say, like, what sort of change just very broadly speaking, I mean, it seems obvious, like having doctors that just care, right? Like
Yeah.
that would probably be like the central thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, can you go through just what sort of, I guess, I'm assuming there are changes that you would like to see made. Is that?
Yeah, like my biggest thing is with the medical system in general, it's like because of ethics and stuff, it's like you could find out a lot about a doctor and most other doctors from just talking to doctors. And they don't tell you these things like everything is like off the record and stuff, and like, or they'll tell you after the fact. So it's like just having like a better system of keeping up with doctors and these complaints, because it's like if you don't know how to look for a complaint from a doctor, it's like as a patient they will never tell you these things. Sometimes they don't tell you about going to certain facilities that you probably should know about. So, the social workers don't know how to help you because they don't have access to your medical records. So a lot of the time when you ask for help, they just come out and give you a pamphlet or whatever that has phone numbers, and they say call these numbers and hopefully you'll get through. Or like doctors just listening to patients in general. Like sometimes you have people that really care about their health, but when you're very dismissive of them, it's like, what are you doing? It's like, I thought we were in this together, like a partnership. And you don't necessarily feel like it's a partnership anymore. You just feel like you have somebody trying to tell you what to do, but not explain it. And they're not your parents. They're somebody that you're paying money to, and they're dismissive to you, like I'm giving you money. Like,
yeah.
What are you upset about?
Yeah.
I just wish that wasn't something. And then I just wish they would train people on what kidney disease is. You will be surprised at how often you will go to a doctor's office and I'm like, yeah, I have end stage renal failure. And I remember one time, this is why I knew that I had to leave this one doctor. He started Googling in front of me, and I was like, yeah, sure, we're going to call this a day. So I've had people that have do that, or even going to the emergency room. No one knows what kidney disease is. I've had people, one of the worst things you can do is if a kidney patient goes to the hospital is just give them fluids. Because first you need to check their weight. Like, we have what we call the dry weight. So it's supposed to be the weight that you have if you drunk nothing, just a regular weight. You have the right amount of water in your muscles, everything. So, sometimes your dry weight can be like, let's say my dry weight is 65. So if I came into the hospital and I weighed 68 kilos, because 60 kilos is like, for every kilo is 2 pounds. So if I came in with 3 kilos on, and your first thing before you even do anything is like, oh, I'm going to give you fluid. So now you've added another liter of fluid to the stuff that's already hard on my heart. And the fact that you don't even realize that you're doing this because this protocol is very bad. I was like, this is bad. I was like, you could kill me, or make me sicker. It's just that I just feel like people in general, when they don't see you sick, like they can't see your outward appearance. I just would like for them to not, like, just stop assuming, because you never know. Like, I call it myself, I carry myself with dignity, is what I call it. So sometimes even when I'm at my sickness, I'll keep my head up. I don't even complain. I just like, hey, this is what it is. And I just want you to respect the fact that I'm trying to be calm, and I'm not coming in panicking like I'm dying and this is all this happening. Because it's like, either way, it's like if I'm too calm, you think I'm faking it. If I come in and act manic, it's like I'm either faking it or I want drugs. So it's like, what the hell do you want me to do? Do you want me to call you before I get here? Do you want me to bring a cake, some lunch, or something, just to make you feel like you have some type of connection with me? It's no human connection. It's more so just telling me facts off of paper. And I was like, people don't realize, it's like, I went to school with doctors, I went to school with nurses, I went to school with lawyers, I went to school with everybody. And just because they have these degrees and shit doesn't mean they're not fucking idiots sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes people just don't have common sense about things. Sometimes doctors are just great at remembering shit on the test or looking at things. There's so many things. So it's like sometimes I just would wish my doctors or people in general would just come in and have some type of, what do you call it? Humbleness. Just be humble. That is like the biggest thing in healthcare. They are not humble. Everybody is so full of their own shit. And they're so full of people telling them, "Oh, you're so right," or people agreeing with them. It's like sometimes shit doesn't just fall into this box. Like even with my stomach issues, like when I first started, just because I look healthy and I was 180, it's like don't put me in this box. Oh, he's just a kid being a kid. Or if I'm telling you that I'm upset and I'm in pain, don't put me as this box like, oh, he's just wanting pain medication. It's like I feel like I've done enough to prove that I've been a good patient. Like I've had doctors that say, "Oh, do you want to speak at this what you call it for me to talk about this?" Like this right here, this fistula. Most of the time, what happens with people is that you have doctors and nurses. They'll keep they just do what they feel is best, and you can't do that with some shit like this because if this is basically my lifeline. So if anything happened to this, is either I'm gonna have more catheters, I'm gonna get more surgeries to get this in my arm, and I've had this for most people. They said the deadline is usually between 7 to 10 years because between them not taking care of it and medical staff, it ruptures and they can bleed to death or it just stops working. I've had this for 18 years. And you'll be surprised. I've spoken to conventions about my arm with other doctors, and you'll be surprised at the number of people who's like, "Oh, that doesn't look like this," or "You should go get surgery." And like at first when I was younger, it was one of those things where I would just be like, like, no, I've had it for this long. But then it got to the point I was like, you know what? You go get the surgery, and then you come talk to me about it. I was like, you've been doing this for how long? Like a couple of months and you got trained? It's like, don't talk to me about 18 years worth of experience. It's like, thank you. I know you've been a doctor for however long, but don't talk to me about 18 years of experience. Like you went to medical school to find out what it meant to be a stomach doctor. And you probably learned some things around that to be a doctor, but I've been dealing with one specific thing since I've been 15 years old. And I've kept myself alive, even when y'all thought I was going to die, even when you thought it was no reason for me to feel the way I was, or when you told me that I know you're sick and you're going to just have to do this surgery, and I changed it. I was like, all this time I've done this, and I was like, you have my records, and you don't even want to show me enough respect to even look at my records before you come in here talking like a dumbass. Because most of the time what ends up happening is that they use big words like thrombosis and all this other shit. And I'm like, sir, so you don't have to say thrombosis, just say a clot in the leg. It's like, I was like, every time you say something, I'm going to use layman terms. Because you're trying to come in here and tell me about, oh, FSGS and all this other shit. And I was like, no, you can just say, hey, you have extra stomach acid or something. No, you have acid reflux with GERDs with a appendix, like with a proclivity for this. Like, no, just tell me this. Yeah. It's like that's what makes me think that what keeps them from being humble is that ability to use all these words that most people don't know. Like when you say osteo, don't say osteo, say fucking bone. Like,
yeah.
Like just say it in ways that I already know. But it's like the fact that I was pre-med myself and I have to talk to my doctors, I realize how some of them are such dicks.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, you would think they would be a little more like kind dealing with somebody's life, but some of them are dicks, man. And that's all I'm like, just come in humble, because what's going to happen is that you're going to be sitting here talking to me and we're going to get into an argument. And I do doctors like I do food. I don't argue with people that are going to make my food, and I don't argue with the people that are going to take care of my life. Because I'm not trying to be in a situation where you feel a certain type of way and now you don't want to, work with me. And I've had that happen in the past where you put like you set a doctor straight and then they just don't pay attention to you. Um, and that's the reason why that's like basically the biggest reason why I just start taking care of things myself, because if I make them mad, they're just gonna give me subpar treatment. And sometimes, like I said, you have to bide your time until you finish with that shit or finish with them.
So what is? Tell me about your arm.
So
Maybe show it to the camera. You can stand up really quick and like come just so stand right there and then.
All right. So this is a dialysis fistula. Which way?
No, step back a bit. Okay, and like bring your arm down.
They're down like this.
Yep, and then step back a little bit more so that you're in focus.
Okay, like this.
Let's see here. Let me mess with it. Okay. Just up a touch.
All right.
Nope. Down just a little. There. Perfect.
All right. So this is a dialysis fistula. So basically, you get this when you take a regular vein and connect it to an artery. So the increased blood flow causes your veins to balloon up. And I believe mine's is this big because because like I said the first time, so I got the surgery and then my nurse was like, oh, it's too small. So I ended up getting another surgery and it made it big. And then another nurse was like, oh, it's too big. So I got another surgery on this arm.
Wow.
So that's when I was like, you just have to be vigilant for yourself. But this basically is how they do dialysis because of the increased blood flow allows them to do the treatment and not like overwork your vein, because your veins don't have they're too small to have the enough volume for this. Because some people, what'll end up happening is that it's called a graft. So this is natural, so it heals. Mine's heals. So that's why it's like the best type of treatment if you're doing dialysis. But what happens is that some people will have veins that can't be used. Sometimes you have people that just have horrible veins. Sometimes you have people that are on drugs, and you can only have a catheter in for so long because you don't want like something rubbing up against the inside of your body, because your body is going to create scar tissue the more it does it. So they don't want you to have a catheter for an extended period of time. And also catheters tend to clot and they stop working. You can't take showers. You can't go to the beach. You can't go to the pool. You can't do anything to get it wet. Sometimes if you sweat too much, you should probably go and change your shirt just to not have that dampness on you.
Wow.
It can be very bad. But what I have keeps that from happening, and since it's not a plastic tube in my arm, it heals. Because another thing with grafts is that just like a catheter, you don't keep them in long because it's like you keep putting holes in a plastic tube, you can't heal it up no matter what you do. So you have to keep changing them, and that is usually 5 to 10 years to keep that. So yeah, this is like the best course of treatment. It's like it took me a long time to accept it because, like I said, when I was in the 9th grade when the majority of this happened. So within that year, just like, being with high school kids and all that stuff, is like you already have a complex in the first place.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
high school is not the nicest place. And in 9th grade, I was 9th grade before I became an asshole. I was always like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like you're very self-conscious. So, I mean, it took me a while to just, get to that mindset, because it's not easy to just have to figure all this out and then just go. Yeah, man. It's rough.
I'm going to call it there.
All right.
Is that all right? Or is there anything else you want to talk about?
No,
I just can't think of any other questions.
No, that's fine. I guess like another thing that I probably think that people should realize as well is just not just outside of being misdiagnosed with kidney disease that got me to this point. It's going to multiple doctors And out of the multiple doctors I've had since I was 18 years old, only two of them I know gave a damn about me. And even just recently, it's like I was lactose intolerant for years, didn't even realize it. And I'm sitting here trying to like go into the hospital. I went through thousands of dollars worth of tests. I ate radioactive eggs. I had blood transfusions from because I had hemorrhoids so bad that it was nothing that I could do. And that was one of those moments again where you're going to the doctor, you're trusting what they're saying, and it's something as simple as being lactose intolerant and them not even doing the test for it, and you've had surgery, you've had blood transfusions. So in the past 2 years, I've had 4 blood transfusions, surgery, and blood sepsis. And I was anemic to the point where I just didn't function, and it was because I was lactose intolerant. And that's the shit that you're supposed to walk around with all day and be happy. And I just, for any other person, no matter what your doctor is, no matter what their profession is, always research your medications. If you don't feel good about something, or something's not feeling right and you're doing everything to the T, don't take the excuse of, well, you feel a little better. Don't take excuses, because you're even when you feel bad, you can tell the difference from when you feel bad and just feeling bad. And you have to be vigilant about your health. You're gonna always be your biggest advocate. There's nothing that I can tell somebody to make them feel what I want them to feel for me going to dialysis. I know how I feel because I'm me. I can describe it to you as best as I can, but it's like nobody can feel what you feel. So it's like, be aware of your body. It's like to argue with a doctor doesn't mean that you're trying to be a bad patient. To even think of it as an argument is what makes you a bad patient. It's not a bad patient to advocate your own health, because at the end of the day,